Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is way back. Welcome on, Chris Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined this morning by Daniel Starkand. Daniel, we got some positive injury news for the Dodgers. Chris Taylor did some light running earlier this week. Going to do some simulated games, then a rehab assignment. Before we get into the nitty-gritty here, is that good news for you? Are you excited about the prospect of Chris Taylor returning?
Absolutely. It's great news. I mean, that's a guy who you could pretty much plug and play in any position in the diamond. So that's a good guy to have on your roster. Also, I mean, the playoffs are getting closer and closer here. So the more healthy bodies, the better. So yeah, absolutely. Love hearing that, CT3 is making progress.
Yeah, I believe it was Tuesday. He did some light running, no discomfort, was not planning a second scan. As I said, he's going to stay behind and do some simulated games while the Dodgers go out on the road. Then he's going to report to Oklahoma City for a rehab assignment, it sounds like, which led me to ask sort of a question that on the surface you might not think of, but now that guys have stepped up, is what happens when Chris Taylor comes back? We did an interview with Fabian Ardaya of The Athletic earlier this week, and I kind of asked him this question, and he was sort of like, well, of course, he's going to become an everyday guy once again. And you look at the numbers, historically, that makes sense. This was a 3.2 win player last season. He was on pace for 4.5 or 5 wins in this shortened 2020 season, had that been expanded to a full year. And yet, you look at his numbers this year, he's hitting .238. He's got an OPS of .728. He has a 35.4% strikeout rate. That's the fourth worst mark in baseball among guys with 250 plate appearances. The walk rate has decreased the last 2 seasons from 2020, the career high. StatCast, the whiff rate is in the first percentile. That's bad. That's not good. The expected batting average is the 4th percentile. Expected slugging percentage is the 17th percentile. And yet the barrel rate, everyone wants to talk about, 74th percentile. There, the defense, by the way, outs above average is 0. 0 is average. He is perfectly average defensively. Sprint speed does offer something base running. And so I started thinking, Ardaya, okay, if Taylor immediately gets his spot back, whose spot does he take? Because 2 months ago you say, well, he just plugs right back into left field. But I look at Trayce Thompson and Jake Lamb. They're killing it. Trayce has an OPS over 900. Jake Lamb has an OPS over 800. Taylor last year was 782. So both of these guys were better OPS-wise than even Taylor was last year. 840 was Taylor's career high back in 2020. But then it gets even more interesting because you say, okay, Jake Lamb and Trayce Thompson, are you really going to take those guys out of the lineup? Which leads to the more fascinating question, which is, whose spot does he take? Dave Roberts was asked, could he play other positions other than left field? This is what Dave Roberts says when asked if he could play infield. Quote, has something changed? Quote, it has, in the sense that a lot of him playing the outfield was driven by his elbow and just giving it time to heal. So obviously, as we've gone through the season, we feel he can handle a different arm angle from the infield to the outfield. He went on to add Taylor will play left field, center field, and second base on rehab assignment, but not third base, given Justin Turner and Max Muncy's spot there. Which brings me to 2 of the biggest strugglers on the Dodgers, Cody Bellinger and Max Muncy. Daniel, whose at-bats are Chris Taylor taking? Are they Jake Lamb and Trayce Thompson's? Are they Max Muncy's? Are they Cody Bellinger's? Are they all of the above? What do you think?
I think what you just said there, all the above, is kind of the answer. I think with Chris Taylor's versatility, you can move him around. I think there's kind of a natural platoon there in center field, like Cody Bellinger at this point. I don't know how many lefties you want him starting against. So I think he could play center field against lefties. I also think as you look at the standings, as the Dodgers continue to build their lead here, I think you could afford to give guys more days off. So you look at guys like Trey Turner and Freddie Freeman, they've been in the lineup every single game this season. And I get that they like doing that. I get that, they get paid a lot and they're everyday players, and I respect the hell out of them playing every single game. But I also think when you have a 15-game division lead in August, I don't think you need to push them like that. I think you can afford to give them each, 1 day off every 2 weeks or something. So I mean, if Trey Turner is getting a day off, Chris Taylor is the natural fill-in at shortstop. I think, like Dave Roberts mentioned, he could play a little second base, even though I feel like, Gavin Lux pretty much has that position on lock the way he's been playing. But I definitely agree that, guys like Trayce Thompson and Jake Lamb are playing well. We'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah.
Like, I think their track record isn't nearly as long as a guy like Chris Taylor, even though he's not having the best season right now. So we'll see with that. I also think you can't just expect everyone that's on the roster to stay healthy. Like, more injuries are going to come up. So just having a guy like Chris Taylor that could pretty much fill in anywhere if an injury arises. Like, if you look back when Mookie got hurt earlier in the season, like, Chris Taylor was playing some right field. So that's also a possibility as well. So I just think having a guy like that on your roster is good, even if he's not swinging the bat as, you know, at what he's capable of. Like, if he's a league average hitter, a guy with his type of versatility, that's still a valuable player, even if he's not necessarily playing every single day. Like, if Chris Taylor is getting 4 to 5 starts a week, that's still plenty of playing time to keep him relevant. And it also allows you to get other guys, you know, days off.
Yeah, totally. And I guess what's interesting to me about the Taylor conversation is more of how long is the leash for Cody Bellinger and Max Muncy offensively. Because you look at the numbers. Bellinger has an OPS around 650, a career high strikeout rate, a career low walk rate. July, he hit 188 with a 250 on base and a 330 slugging. June, 189, 235, 368. So we're not talking about a guy who's trending in the right direction. His OPS went down 20 points between June and July. He's hit under 190 in both of those months. You look at Max Muncy, he's hitting 158 on the season. Again, July, the lowest batting average he's had in any month this year, the most strikeouts he's had in any month this year. His expected batting average, by the way, is in the first percentile. So we're not talking about a guy that's like, oh my gosh, there's this huge gap between his actual batting average and expected batting average. He's walking. That's keeping everything afloat because he's not hitting the ball, he's not seeing the ball, and he's not connecting with the ball. And so maybe I should ask that question more specifically, not connected to Taylor. How long is the leash with those two guys? Like, when Dave Roberts starts to have making decisions about, do I keep trotting Trayce Thompson and Jake Lamb out there, or do I keep giving Cody Bellinger reps? Because you look at it, it's you pointed this out. So catcher is set, first base is set, right field is set, shortstop is set. According to Dave Roberts, it sounds like third base is also set, with Max Muncy a part of that platoon, by the way. So that means you've got a designated hitter spot, left field, and center field. When you look at, again, Lamb and Thompson, if you're going to say one of those two guys has to be in the lineup for now, against righties, you could say Lamb could play DH, Chris Taylor could play center field or left field, Trayce Thompson maybe in left field. That would leave Bellinger on the bench. That would leave Muncy on the bench. You against lefties, maybe it's Taylor in left field, Bellinger maybe at center field, Trayce Thompson at DH. Like, I just don't know where you find spots for Muncy and Bellinger with the platoons and that stuff. So the more I crunch it, I guess I'll land here, and this might not seem like it's making sense. I think Max Muncy's the guy who's ultimately hurt the most by this, because I think Bellinger, you can at least point to the elite defense that he's playing in center field. With Max Muncy, what is he hanging his hat on right now? He's fine defensively, but you don't need him at the position he's playing, and he's not elite in the same way that Cody Bellinger is.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that Belly obviously brings more value defensively, so that's why he kind of has a longer leash, and he's also, as bad as the numbers are, he gets some timely hits at least. Like, he's hit
his OPS is higher than Muncy's right now.
Yeah. So I definitely think he's ahead of Muncy in the pecking order. With that said, I think you still see the upside with Muncy. Like, let's say if he could get going at some point, even if it's in October. Like, if you look at Cody Bellinger's season last year, he was probably worse than Muncy this year, or pretty equivalent, worse than himself this year. Like, Cody Bellinger last year is one of the worst hitters we've ever seen, quite frankly. And also the Dodgers were in a close division race all the way until the very last day of the season, and they kept trotting Cody out there. And I know you could say there's some luck involved or whatever, but the guy hit in the postseason. Yeah. There's no denying that. So I think in that sense, if you look at the division lead this year, it's a lot more comfortable. You're not fighting to win every single game down the stretch like you were last year. I also think you see the upside in a guy like Muncy that, hey, he might be awful all regular season, but if he could catch lightning in a bottle in the postseason, that's a guy you want. So I think both of those guys are still going to get their opportunities. Like, it's not like either of those guys are going to be benched completely or whatever. But I definitely think I'd say Muncy is probably the guy who's going to lose the most playing time with Chris Taylor coming back. I think they play, similar positions. Like, Muncy plays some second, which Chris Taylor could play in. He DHs a lot, which you could, Chris Taylor could either DH or he could play the field and another guy could DH, like maybe Trey Turner DHs for a game just to get off his feet or whatever the case may be. So I think in that sense, Muncy has the most to lose there. But I don't think it's ever going to get to the point where it's like, Max Muncy's strictly a bench player for us. I think they're going to keep giving him opportunities as long as this division lead is double digits. Like, you're not necessarily playing to win every game. I know that's frustrating for Dodger fans who have very high expectations. And like this week, for example, you see them lose 2 straight games to the Nationals. It's like the sky is falling, but then you look at the standings and they still got the best record in baseball, 11.5 above the Padres. So I don't think there's quite that sense of urgency right now where you have to trot out your best 9 guys every single game.
Yeah, and the one thing I would add to what you just said is they could trot Bellinger out last year because he was always going to be better or at least as good as Billy McKinney and Luke Raley and Zach Rex and DJ Peters.
Fair. That's very
So what
fair.
makes this one so interesting is that, yes, that is the track record. Dave Roberts is a loyal guy. We saw it with folks like Kenley Jansen. We've seen it with Bellinger. We've seen it with Muncy. Even the fact that we're still having the Muncy conversation. Like, did you hear me say he's hitting 158? Like, basically playing almost every day for the majority of this season so far. He's in the first percentile for expected batting average. His slugging percentage is 304, and yet he's still out there. What makes this so interesting is not only do they have guys like Trayce Thompson and Jake Lamb, even Hanser Alberto, who's starting to hit a little bit.
Yep.
But yesterday, you and I recorded a video talking about guys like Garrett Cooper and Brandon Drury and JD Martinez, and do they go out and add a bat? Because again, I just keep coming back to, great, let's go add these guys. Whose spot in the lineup are they taking? It can't be Trayce Thompson, who has an OPS over 900, at least not until he starts to struggle. It can't be Jake Lamb, who's putting up competitive at-bats with an OPS over 800 and who hits, righties in a way that the Dodgers needed. Like, those are the types of guys where I'm like, it can't be them. So it comes down to, and it's not Gavin Lux this year, who's a great offensive player, top 15 in WAR. It's not Ketcher. It's not Trey. It's not Mookie. It's not Freddie. It's not Justin Turner who's been swinging the bat. It's Bellinger and Muncy. And so at the very least, I'll leave it with, it's going to be so interesting to me to see how Dave Roberts handles this. This is his strength. People want to hate on Dave Roberts and say he's an E8 when it comes to bullpen, yada, yada, yada. Okay. What makes him great is his player management, his person management, the clubhouse. And so when it comes to Bellinger and when it comes to Muncy, and how are you going to handle the types of situations where maybe those guys find out that instead of playing 6 days a week, they're playing 4 days a week? How does that go? Can those guys figure something out? Can they turn it around? That'll be really interesting to see. So let us know what you think in the comments below. Am I crazy? Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, let me just add to kind of close it out, to add to what you were saying. Like you just mentioned, last season with Billy McKinney and Luke Raley, like, this is a good problem to have if you're the Dodgers. Like, if you're in a place where you have too many guys that are deserving of playing time or too many guys who have a career that, says they should be playing, that's a very good problem to have. And if you look at just, 1 season ago, how bad it was to be in this spot this year, like, I'll absolutely take that.
Yeah, it's a great point. Let us know what you guys think below. Am I crazy for thinking Trayce Thompson and Jake Lamb are at the top of the group that I just talked about with Taylor, Bellinger, and Muncy? Because I think they are. Is Muncy the one who gets hurt the most? Let us know in the comments below. That's Daniel Starkand. My name's Jeff Spiegel. As always, we appreciate you joining us. Check out DodgerBlue.com, DodgerBlue1958 on social media, and make sure you're subscribed, ring the notification bell here as well. Trade deadline, just a few days away. We're going to have all the breaking news for you, all the latest updates here. So make sure you get notifications when those videos come. We appreciate you joining us. As always, we'll see you next time. Thanks.